In 1980, a NASA spacecraft flew past Saturn close enough to photograph its North Pole for the first time. What they found, scientists have never fully explained. It was a perfect geometric hexagon, 6-sided, symmetrical, and twice as wide as Earth. Not a storm that came and went, but consistent. When Cassini arrived 24 years later and spent 13 years orbiting Saturn, it was still there, still perfect, still mesmerizing. A Caltech scientist on the mission said it best: "A hurricane on Earth lasts a week. This has been here for decades, and who knows, maybe centuries." Now I want to show you 3 things today. The actual science, peer-reviewed, measurable, stuff that you can look at, every single thing I'm about to say, and verify it for yourself. Then, what ancient civilizations taught us with no spacecrafts, no cameras, no physics, no AI, and what they had to say about the same planet. And then independent verification across thousands of years. And then I'm going to tell you about what our Harranū Research Institute team has found through direct contact working with the spirit molecule and working with this question. 3 completely different ways of knowing, and they all coincidentally point at the same thing. So let's get into it. There are 5 anomalies on Saturn, and these are not my interpretations. These are NASA Cassini measurements that are published in peer-reviewed journals. So anomaly 1, the hexagon, which is confirmed by Voyager 1980, confirmed by Cassini every single year from 2004 to 2017. 20,000 miles across, wind sustained at 200 to 300 miles per hour, about 180 miles deep into the atmosphere. Here's what makes this weird, okay? On Earth, jet streams meander, they curve, they drift, they never lock into a specific geometric shape. There is literally no atmospheric feature on Earth that holds a perfect polygon for 40 years. Scientists have proposed differential rotation, anticyclonic shielding. Some of those models can create polygon shapes in the lab, but what they can't explain is why the hexagon specifically. I'll share with you. But why the North Pole specifically as well? Why has it been perfectly stable for what may be centuries? Anomaly number 2, Saturn's core temperature. It's approximately 15,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hotter than the surface of our sun. And Saturn emits more than twice the energy that it receives from the sun. A 2024 paper in Nature Communications confirmed that the internal heat flux at 2.84 watts per square meter said something inside Saturn is generating energy that planetary science doesn't fully account for. Anomaly number 3, the rings, 280,000 kilometers wide, 10 to 20 meters thick. That width to thickness ratio is 14 million to 1. So a sheet of paper is 2,000 to 1. Saturn's rings are 7,000 times flatter than paper. Natural ring systems formed from debris, they don't do that. They distribute very irregularly, and they're not primordial. Now our current research places them at 100 to 400 million years old. Saturn formed 4.5 billion years ago. Something made those rings. And relatively recent. Anomaly number 4, Cassini's radio and plasma wave science instrument documented structured radio frequency emissions from Saturn. Not random noise, structured, repeating, responsive to conditions in the inner solar system. Okay? Saturn is broadcasting something. Anomaly 5, Saturn's thermosphere. Its upper atmosphere is about twice as hot as solar heating alone can produce. The solution from Cassini's final orbit as electrical currents generated at the poles by the aurora are distributing heat planet-wide. Saturn has an electromagnetic system driven from its poles that are running energy across the entire planet. 5 anomalies, they're all documented, all published, and nobody has asked whether they're connected, because they are, and I'm asking. So here's the piece of solid geometry that they don't teach you in school. A hexagon is the 2-dimensional projection of a cube. Take a cube, view it from above at the correct diagonal angle, and you'll see a perfect hexagon. That's not esoteric, that's math. You can do it with a cardboard box right now. Saturn's hexagonal storm isn't just a weather anomaly. It's a cubic field architecture visible from space at a planetary scale. And there's a model for how a specific frequency introduced into a system can organize the dynamics into geometric shapes, Chladni patterns. So when you take salt and put it or sand on a vibrating plate, a specific frequency, you can make a perfect hexagon. The geometry is a function of the frequency. So something is driving that frequency into Saturn systems and keeping it in a perfect hexagon. And it has been for centuries. Now hold this. If you take a hollow cube and you unfold it flat, 6 faces, the natural unfolding produces a cross. Vertical column of 4 squares. One extending left, one extending right, and then it's longer on the opposite side. Mathematicians call it the net of a cube. Christians call it the cross. Now I'm not going anywhere with that yet. I'm just going to let you hold on to it. It'll come up later. The cube, the hexagon, the cross, the ring. These are not separate symbols. They're a geometric family. They are all aspects of the same 3-dimensional form. And they are embedded precisely, systematically, and at the devotion layer of every single major world religion on earth. Let me show you how. Okay, so first I want to take you to a city that most people have heard of and almost nobody has actually studied in great detail. Babylon, modern day Iraq, not the oldest civilization, but the origin point of the specific architecture that we're talking about now and that we're tracking. The Babylonian priestly class, operating from roughly 3000 to 500 BCE, built the first comprehensive system. It explicitly linked planetary observation to divine authority. And in that system, Saturn was assigned 3 things: the black cube, the number 6, and the culminating day of the week, Saturnian Saturday. The last one is the most verifiable fact in this entire video. The 7-day week. You use it. Every person watching this uses it. Every person on Earth uses Saturday. It was systematized in Babylon around 700 BCE. And each day is assigned to one of these 7 visible celestial bodies. Saturn's day was the culminating day of rest. The Babylonians called it Shabbatai. The Hebrew Shabbat comes directly from that word. Romans called it Dis Saturni, Saturn's day. In English, Saturday. In Arabic, Al-Sabt. In Japanese, Doyubi, Earth Star Day, still referencing Saturn. 7.8 billion people, 100% of the human population, using a calendar whose 7th day was named after Saturn by Babylonian astronomers 2,700 years ago. That transmission has never been interrupted. Now, the architecture. The ziggurat, not a pyramid pointing upward, but a stacked cubic structure, each level a precise rectilinear platform, okay? The great Etemenanki in Babylon, the probable inspiration for the Tower of Babel, 7 stories, base measuring 91.5 by 91.5 meters, was less than 2% of a perfect square. About 25 major ziggurats have been identified in Mesopotamia. This wasn't a single building, it was an architectural program. And at the top of every single one, the temple. The god lived inside the cubic geometry at the apex of the cubic tower at the center of the city. Now, I'm going to move fast through 12 traditions, and I want you just to see the pattern here. Okay, Judaism, Shabbatai, the Hebrew name for Saturn. The tefillin, the black cubic leather boxes that are placed at the third eye and at the heart center during morning prayer. Okay, on Saturday, Saturn's day. Islam, the Kaaba. In Arabic, the Kaaba literally means cube. 1.9 billion people face it in daily prayer. The Hajj Tawaf, 7 counterclockwise circuits around the black cube. Okay? Christianity, the cross, the net of a cube unfolded. Cruciform cathedrals built in that same shape. Jesus crucified at age 33. The human spine has 33 vertebrae. We're going to do a full video on that number alone, but we'll keep going. Zoroastrianism, the eternal flame inside a cubic stone altar. The Iran Shah fire in India has been burning continuously since 721 CE, 1300 years, and Zoroastrianism gave every Abrahamic religion the cosmic good versus evil battle. 4 billion people currently operate on a cosmology that started in ancient Persia. Kabbalah, the tree of life, which is a genuine map of consciousness from source to material manifestation. And beneath it, the cliff off. the inverted shells. The shadow architecture is built directly into the map. Hinduism, Shani, the deity of Saturn, associated with black stone and iron. Buddhism, the stupa, cubic base, dome above. Jainism, the most mathematically precise description of a soul trap in any ancient tradition. Karma, described as literal particles that attach to the soul and weigh it down, keeping it in the cycle. The Jain liberation protocol is exactly the escape route that you would design if you knew what the trap was. Norse, Odin, ruler of the dead, harvester of souls, master of time and fate. The Valknut, 3 interlocked triangles forming a Borromean knot. Remove any one ring and the other 2 come free. The soul bound by 3 simultaneous mechanisms. Break one and it's not enough. Aztec and Maya, not spatial cubic geometry, but time-based containment. The Tonopalahui, a 260-day ritual calendar where every single day is named, prescribed, assigned to a deity's domain. Total administrative control of time. The Maya long count, 525 years per cycle, which happens to correspond almost exactly to the length of recorded human civilization. Freemasonry, 33 degrees of initiation. The perfect ashlar, it becomes the cubic stone as the initiatory goal. Black and white checkered floor, cube faces, unfolded. 11 traditions, 1 geometric signature, all tracing back to one origin point. Babylon, 700 BCE. And here's where I have to be completely clear about what I'm doing. Okay, everything that I just showed you is documented. You can look it up yourself. It's historical and it's verifiable. The NASA data, the ring measurements, the Babylonian architecture, the calendar, the ziggurat dimensions, every specific thing is citable. You can check it all out. What I'm about to offer is my interpretation, a framework, and the question that we've been sitting with at Harranū. Not the answer that we're declaring, but a framework. So what if the consistent appearance of cubic, hexagonal, and ring geometry at the devotional centers of every major world religion is not coincidental? What if there's a functional reason that this specific geometry appears everywhere? Sincere practitioners direct their most concentrated energy towards it. And at Harranū, we call it the 2-layer model. Layer 1 is the genuine transmission. Every single tradition that we've analyzed contains real functional consciousness data and navigational content. The Tibetan Book of the Dead is a genuine manual for what happens after you die. The Egyptian Book of the Dead is not mythology. It is a navigational protocol. The Kabbalistic Tree of Life is a real map of consciousness from source all the way to the material realm. These transmissions, they're alive, and the people practicing these traditions are sincere. The genuine layer has always been real. Layer 2 is the installed architecture, the inversion. It's layered on top of the transmission in every single tradition, and it's the same geometric signature, the cube, the hexagon, the ring. At the devotional center, directing the practitioner's most concentrated energy towards an absorptive geometry. Not towards source, towards absorptive geometry. The practitioners aren't necessarily being deceived. They're sincere. And the architecture only requires their participation, not their understanding. So here's the practical question. If you pray 5 times a day, facing a black cubic structure, if you bind black cubic boxes to your primary field emission centers during morning practice, if you worship inside of a building shaped like the net of a cube, where do you think your energy is actually going? We're not saying stop doing this. We're not saying your tradition is worthless. We're simply saying that we know both layers. The genuine transmission survives beneath the overlay. It always has. The mystics who accessed it directly, Rumi, the Kabbalists, the Gnostics, the Egyptian initiates, they navigated all around that overlay. They found what was real, and understanding the architecture is how you access the genuine transmission layer without the redirect or the inversion. And here's something most researchers in this space won't say out loud. A significant part of what we know at Harranū we didn't get from books, okay? It came from direct astral travel, direct contact work, direct experience with the spirit molecule and entities, structured sessions with multiple independent researchers, Bonnie, Rory, Melissa, Brad, myself, using verified remote viewing methodology, EEG monitoring, and cross-referencing protocols, multiple perceivers working independently on the same target, no coordination with each other, then comparing results. And I'm labeling this clearly. This isn't peer-reviewed. This isn't the transmitted layer. I think it's real, and I'm going to tell you what it showed us, and then you can decide what to do with it yourself. Because what came through repeatedly and consistently across all of these independent sessions is this: Saturn was not always what it is now. The hexagonal architecture, the ring system, these were not original to the planet. They were installed. The planet was changed. The installation was executed by an intelligence operating on timescales that make human civilization look like an afternoon. Okay? 100 to 4 million year construction window is consistent with what we've been seeing and what we've been shown about the operational scale of the executing intelligence. What Saturn was before was a coherent supportive field, a planetary body whose electromagnetic system was contributing to consciousness across the inner solar system. But what it became was a coherence suppressor, a dampener, a broadcasting system for a specific field architecture, one that cannot create anything new. It only creates inversions, and it interacts with human consciousness in documented ways. The most documentable of these interactions is chronic low-level fear. Now, before you dismiss that, right, hold one thing. The 14 to 30 hertz beta frequency range, okay? What is that? That's chronic survival stress, hypervigilant autonomic activation. That's not Harranū language, that's literal neuroscience. That is the documented brainwave state of chronic fear. The Heart Math Institute tells us that they did a legitimate research institution. They're a legitimate research institution with peer-reviewed publications. They've documented that heart coherence is at 0.1 hertz. HRV produces measurable reductions in cortisol and reduced amygdala activity and enhanced cognitive flexibility. 0.1 hertz, that's the counter frequency to get outside of the net. What the heart generates in genuine coherence, genuine safety, genuine connection with others, and in our contact work, that frequency, that heart coherence, comes through very clear and very consistently as the one field state that the Saturnian architecture cannot efficiently process. I'm not asking you to believe the cosmological framework here, but I'm asking you to notice the frequency, notice the patterns, notice the prescription coming out of the transmitted layer. It is consistent with published neuroscience, okay? Heart coherence, genuine safety, genuine belonging, that's the counter architecture to this. And awareness and understanding what you're doing. Let me bring all these three layers together. So the science shows us a planet with unexplained geometric architecture at its pole, an internal energy source without a complete explanation, a ring system of impossible precision added within the last 400 million years, structured radio broadcasts into the inner solar system, and an electromagnetic heat distribution system that makes no sense, driven from the poles. The history shows us that every culture that developed enough astronomical sophistication to observe Saturn independently embedded its geometry signature at the devotional center of their most sacred practices. All of it traceable back to one systematic point in Babylon. Our contact research shows us that these two threads are connected, that the astronomical anomaly and the religious patterns are aspects of the same architecture. Three different methodologies pointing at the very same thing. Here's what this is not saying, all right? I'm not saying your tradition is worthless. It's saying it has two layers, and the genuine one is more powerful than the inversion, because this energy cannot create anything new, it can only copy. And it's not saying Saturn is evil. Saturn isn't evil. This is not a moral framework. It's field physics framework. Saturn was changed and it was inverted. That's how we got dualism. It wasn't born this way, and it's not saying that you need to do anything differently right now. Just be aware of it. What it's saying is understanding the architecture is the beginning of navigating it yourself, navigating it consciously. 5,000 years of sincere human beings praying, meditating, chanting, and circumambulating oriented towards source. That's what we want to get back to. The architecture required only their participation, not their understanding, and that's the problem. Clarity withdraws your consent. That's it. That's the whole kit and caboodle. The next video in this series, we're going to talk about Babylon, the actual origin point. We're going to go through the archaeological record, the ziggurat, dimensions, the cuneiform astronomy text, the exact mechanisms by which the Saturday calendar transmitted to every successor civilization. And I'm going to show you the magic square of Saturn, 6x6 grid. Every row, every column, every diagonal sums up to 111. Total 666. First systematized by the Babylonian mathematical astronomers in 700 BCE. Still encoded at the center of Western religious tradition. I'll see you there.